So when we talked in pre-interview, you described this idea of the resilient entrepreneur. And what you just said, is that the resilient entrepreneur, somebody who balances the human skills and the entrepreneurial skills? And why is it all so important?
Right. So for us, and the Resilient Entrepreneur series is something that we created at the University School of Business Catalyzer. So when we decided that we weren't going to have our big pitch competition, we thought, how can we continue to add value right now to our students and really pivot into something they immediately need and that we can support them with? And we thought about resiliency.
Mm,
And the inspiration of resiliency came not just if you wanted to be an entrepreneur, but just in the way that you face life right now. So I think as an entrepreneur, things are going to happen, right? You can have the business plan on paper, but then the first day that you start your business, everything changes. So the skills of how flexible are you? How do you adapt? How do you take things quote unquote not going your way as learning opportunities, right? Asking yourself, what is the lesson here? All of these different factors of resiliency and how you adjust, how you adapt, to me is one of the greatest skill sets that we can have right now. And what a great opportunity to learn during a global pandemic, so we have a lot of data to work with and to practice our resiliency.
what are the things that are keeping students up at night these days?
I think that for students right now, of course, I think it's the conversation of the economy. The
Right.
conversation of the economy, the conversations of jobs, the conversation of everything changing. So I think right now, if you're graduating and you're hearing all of these things, it is a very intimidating time. But I also have seen students right now, our entrepreneurship club president, I worked with her and recommended her for a job actually here in a company in San Diego, and she got hired and it was her dream job, and it happened during the pandemic. So I also think that for students, you know, they will be asked, how did you take time right now during this pandemic to grow in your skill set, or how did you use this time to continue moving? And for the students that right now just have been able to take it as a learning, keep moving with their resume, networking, calling, using LinkedIn. I think that LinkedIn is the greatest tool of our time. I
Mm.
really see that they're really positioned to do well in the world. And it is, I'm sure, there's a lot of different things that are keeping them up at night, but I also believe in them so much. I know that, they need to believe in themselves because I see their capabilities, and I'm so excited for them to go out into the world. And yes, it will be challenging, and yes, it will be hard, but they're training themselves, they're preparing. You're not going to run a marathon overnight, and they're putting in the work. And I think that putting in the work will make a big difference.
I think one of the most difficult things that college students today have to deal with is the lack of physical proximity. I mentioned to you, my daughter is entering her sophomore year in college. So she's 19 years old, and she has to physical distance right now. That is hard. I think back 40 years ago, where I was 40 years ago, that was not my experience. It was a different world, mind you, a lot more polluted. And we were dealing with different issues at the time. But I think what you're saying about being patient is really resonant. This generation is going to have to play the long game and set aside the short term endorphin rushes of, starting a business, getting the first sale.
Yes,
Timelines are going to take a lot longer because we cannot be in each other's physical presence.
exactly, Dan. I completely agree with you on that. And I think, I'm reminded of this too shall pass. And I think even I am on the younger side in a way, and I'm so rushed for everything. I feel like I need to accomplish all of my professional goals, and this pandemic has made me be a little bit more patient. This is only one chapter of the book of my life,
Mm.
and that's it. And I'm doing the best I can in writing it. I'm learning as much as I can, but I think that when you see the long term of life, you realize that what we're going through right now, it won't be forever. And, for the students, I think another part of it too, I mean, this is a real example of feedback that as simple as this that we had from the students when we were doing the online courses. They said that they missed the casual conversation of walking out the door and touching base with their classmates.
Right.
And that when it was on Zoom, it was so abrupt, right? Class starts, everyone logs out of the meeting. And it was simple feedback of saying, can the professors use 5 minutes at the end of class just to open up the space to touching base? And
Mm.
it actually created a great feeling of, of being, again, in community. And there isn't the physical proximity, but at least they were able to do it, virtually. So I think that right now there is this short-term versus, and this, I think that my greatest frustration happened when I thought that this was going to be a very short-term, you know, turn the lights back on and everything goes back to normal. I think that's when I first hit my first wall. And then I just realized and I said, no, this is not going to be short. This is probably going to be longer than we had anticipated. And we realize even today, it might be even longer than we had anticipated. So I think that when you constantly have this concept of the timeline working how you want it to work, then you're going to be disappointed. But once you let go of that timeline, then you can flow more easily and stop having this frustration of, when is it going to end? When is it going to end? Well, I don't think anyone fully knows when everything and if it's going to go back exactly to normal. We don't know. We don't have this information.
So think about what you just said. I'm an old guy. I'm going to be 60 next year. 18 months, 24 months in the scope of my entire life is nothing. But for my daughter's generation, and she's 19, 18 months to 24 months is a big chunk of the college experience. And that is now defining their college experience for the good and for the bad.
Right.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. And I think it is tough. And I think about my college experience and how is, like what you said, it was really great years of my life, but we never know. Maybe this generation really, builds something in themselves that the world needed, right? Maybe they will have, more resilient skills. Maybe I know that it's tough right now. I just can't make the whole, judgment without having what happens in the long term, right? So I think that right now, maybe this generation has the opportunity to spend more time with their parents, So for
Mm.
me, I was so rushed to get out of my house and to be in other places. And I never really had the opportunity to spend grown up time, with my parents.
Mm.
So that's something I didn't have. And I never thought about it, but I'm thinking about it now. And maybe that's a hidden gift, the gift of time that you have with your loved ones, the gift of awareness of relationships, right, of your friendships, the ones that right now are become you're constantly checking up on each other. How are you feeling? How are you doing? So I think to me this gift of time actually has given me a lot, and I think that for college students in the rush of the college life, maybe right now there's some hidden gifts that in when they look back, when they're 60, they're going to say, well, isn't it really cool that I got to spend a year, spending time with my dad that no longer is here?
Right.
Because that's a reality, that's not an if, it will happen to all of us.